Hello, everybody. I just wanted to talk today to some of you who are my friends. Um, I see a lot of different information on the internet during this COVID crisis. And personally, I just hide in the house and plug my ears most of the time. But, but I too see all the stuff out on social media. Um, and I hear concerns from different people, usually my family, um, from things that they read. And I just see a lot of disinformation, a lot of different information. And for myself, who moved from California to Quebec to then Ontario, and went from being a Californian girl to a farmer whose hands were in manure all day, different things. I've lived with a lot of different cultures. I've lived in the Quebec with the French culture, the Canadian culture, the Mennonite culture, um, the Dutch culture. Those are primarily the ones that I lived in besides the US. But also I've worked with a lot of refugees. And during that time, the Lord taught me in the very hardest way for me um, that I'm not always right. That there's a lot of different opinions in the one that I hold. And through what the Lord's taught me and through my study of the scriptures over my lifetime, um, I've made it a real point in my own life to want to seek out truth. Now, we all know that the ultimate truth is the Lord. He claims to be the way, the truth, and the life, and He is the ultimate truth. And I do think that getting closer to Him and getting to know Him will, of course, teach us more wisdom and truth. But on the ground, where we're dealing with just people's opinions, different doctors' opinions, different studies, things like this, it can be confusing. You get down here in the States, you get two different political groups. You get the Republicans and the Democratic group, and they hardly talk to each other. Very, very polarized. So, with these things in mind, and just some of the questions that I've had, I thought I'd talk today. Now, some of you may know that for over a little more than a year, I've been teaching a girls group of little girls from different churches, where I'm trying to teach them how to discern truth, how to discern fact, and how to formulate um, an opinion that is actually based, or a belief that's actually based on truth. Um, so we've been doing that for over a year, and I may, if I learn how to do this, introduce some of those. I've written up a curriculum for that age, and I may show little bits of that. But just for today, because I've run into these questions of, I made a little, I don't know what I'm doing, but I made a couple of little things here. And this is one, you can't really see it very good. But it's backwards, isn't it, or something? Anyway, I'm not sure. But anyway, this is a saying that's attributed to an Arabian. I don't think anybody knows who wrote it, but it's a very kind of it's a good little saying. It says, "He who knows not and knows not that he knows not is a fool." What do you do with a fool? You shun them. The Bible even teaches us that. He who knows not and knows that he knows not, he doesn't know, but he knows he doesn't know, is a student. And what do you want to do with a student? You want to teach them. He who knows and knows not that he knows is asleep. And you want to wake him, because you might know, you definitely know, and you know that you know. You're sleeping when you don't know that. Tongue tied here. He who knows and knows that he knows is wise, and you want to follow him. So I think the question then becomes, again, I made a little one of these. I don't know how to do it, and it's probably backwards, but how do we know who to listen to? How do we know how to identify truth? There's so much out there, right? How do we know who to listen to? How do we know how to identify truth? And it can be very, very important. Like at this time, I've heard, everything out there, from you need to go in, never go out, never touch anything, hole up completely, to go out, it's just like the flu, it's not going to harm you. Everybody's got an opinion. So, with that in mind, I wanted to address a few things that I've seen. Um, and Let me see if I can put these up here. I don't know if I can. So I'll just pop it up there real quick and then I'll read it. So, number one is I would avoid listening to your groupies exclusively. One thing I find with people is they tend to identify with a group. A lot of us are afraid to walk alone, and as Christians, we really need to be able to walk alone with the Lord and with His Word as our guide. Um, we don't need to have fear of what other people think, what other people believe. We need to really make it a study to know what the truth is. And I see a lot of people that just listen to the people who believe like them. Um, one thing that I can tell you is when I was in Ontario, the Jehovah's Witnesses would come to my house regularly and bring their materials, and I would talk with them. And one time they'd send their pastor over, and one time their pastor brought me their book on Revelation, Jehovah's Witnesses, and he said, "Will you read it?" I said, "Yes, I will." And I read the book, and then I handed it back to him, and I gave him another book of what I believed, as far as what I believed as what Revelation was about. And I said, "Would you read this one?" And he said, "No, I will not, because it will lead me into darkness." Well, there's an example of when you have the truth, you should always be willing to look at the other side, because if you have the truth stands, right? The truth will always stand up under scrutiny. And actually, we don't know if we have the truth until we can stand up with it under scrutiny. So it's very important not to just listen, not to just surround yourself with your group who has your opinions. I always say that reminds me of what's this little paper? Well, anyway, you'll remember. Here it is. If anybody wants it, is this little saying. I know we used to say it as kids, tick tock, the game is locked, nobody else can play. And if they do, we'll take their shoe and beat them till they're black and blue. And in the ideological world, we see so much of that, where you're taking their person's shoe, they don't get to go anywhere, and then you beat them. We don't want to do that as Christians, and we certainly don't want to just surround ourselves with people who pat us on the back and tell us that we're right. Um, the second thing that I think that's important to identify truth is do not automatically judge someone of another opinion as foolish or evil. Of course, extremely we see this with Trump. People who are Democratic friends of mine, people I know, automatically hate the man, automatically blacklist the man, no matter what he says, no matter what he does. And that can happen for any number of people, but he seems to be the guy in the sights of most people today. You don't want to do this because you don't know. You need to take the facts of what that person sees. If you So the next little part I have here is do not automatically judge someone of another opinion of foolish or evil, and I think that's rampant. Coming here from Canada as I did, I immediately saw the huge disparity between Republicans and the Democrats, and I have friends on both sides. I personally did not vote for Donald Trump because when I saw him in the debates, um, he was cruel, he was mean, he said some really rude things to a lot of people. And I thought, as a Christian, I can't vote for that. Of course, I couldn't vote for the other side either because I will not stand for abortion in any way, shape, or form. So I didn't vote. However, watching over the last few years and watching Trump in his position, I've seen some decisions he's made that I think are excellent and things that I wished people would have made previously. I've seen some bad things, but I've seen some good things. And I will not broadly brush someone as evil or foolish because they have a different opinion of mine. However, I get treated that way regularly by people who I know who are of the Democratic persuasion, my own personal experience, who will try to shame me by that I have an opinion at all in that realm. So, and I think that all of us who are Christians need to make sure we also do not do that to people who believe differently than us. We don't want to shame them. We can argue the facts, but we don't want to be shaming them. I dropped my paper. So that's just wrong. We don't do that. Any avoid number three there. Number three, avoid ideological prejudice. It can be as debilitating to another person as other kinds of prejudice, and that's kind of like exactly on the same lines of the other one. When you get in a group that you ascribe to and that you hold on to, whether it be well, it can be anything. You can love music, you sell Tupperware, you can be Republican, you can I don't know, anti-vax. I mean, everybody has different opinions of what they believe, what they like, what they don't like, and that's fine. Um, but if you start looking at the people around you who do not believe that and um, thinking that because they're not of your group, then they're not valid, then you're actually exercising prejudice against them because you've devalued them instantly. And I see a lot of that happening right now during this COVID. So be careful that you don't devalue a person just because they're not your particular group. That is prejudice. Um, do not, again, I think I'm saying this in many different ways, but do not broad brush people who have another stance. They're still individuals and they have reasons that they believe what they believe. You need to debate them if you're going to debate them at the level of the facts and what they believe. I've gotten on to some of my friends who are Democratic people, or hold to the Democratic side there, and they, if I say anything on there that I disagree, I get attacked, shamed, put down to the point that you don't want to speak. And of course, we've all heard where I don't know somebody Hillary or somebody said everybody's deplorables. Again, that's black brushing people. When you take a whole half of the United States that believes one way and another whole half that believes the other, you better bet that each of those individuals is a person and they each are entitled to their own belief without you shaming them and telling them that they are some kind of horrible person. You need to listen to them. You need to hear their facts, and if they're wrong, you need to correct them. So I think that's very, very important. Next one is we go a little chart. If you react against another's opinion with with a fear response, fear responses are usually shaming, ad hominem attack, that's a personal attack, or the broad brushing, where you put them in a group. This whole group is stupid. This whole group is bad. This whole group is out to get us, whatever. It usually means that you yourself do not have a good handle on the truth, I'm sorry to say. Um, because when you turn to the fear generated responses of shaming and blaming and these type of things, um, you are basically telling people that you're afraid of them, you're afraid of what they say, so you're going to just use abuse. You're going to control them with your abuse. Um, that's not what you do. You debate the issues, okay? You give a reason for your opinion, you listen to them. Um, the next one. Yeah, the term university, very interesting. The term university, when we started universities in the United States many, many years ago, universities were set up to bring about unity with diversity. So you would go there and you would debate, and some of our best orators and best debates, of course, were back in the early 1800s, 1700s for that matter. And that's when people knew how to debate and knew how to use logic. Um, so we need to remember that we as a nation have to be based on unity and diversity. We need to learn to listen again. We need to learn to hear the different opinions. Um, and then the final one, and I think one of the most important statements out there, right? You are entitled to your own opinion and preference, yes. You are entitled to that. You are not entitled to your own facts. So you need to know the facts. You need to know where the facts are, and you need to be able to give a good defense without attacking people to what you believe. And I'm not seeing that anywhere, pretty well anywhere on the internet at this point. I am seeing fallacious logic, a lot of fallacies. We did a study with my girls on fallacies, and I think I might do another talk on that for those who are interested, where we go through the various fallacies that people use in order to uh, bring people over to their opinion, because fallacies are deadly dangerous. They'll lead you right away from facts and you'll be lost. So, what I would like to say is that all of us as Christians need to remember, yes, there's a good one right there. And that's just one verse in the scripture that reminds us, walk in wisdom towards outsiders, really towards anybody, making the best use of the time, and let your speech always be seasoned. Oh, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. Every person out there is loved by the Lord. He cares for them. His goal is to bring them to that place of unity with Him, where they understand the real truth of the matter, the real truth of a God that loves them and that wants to be with them. And our little petty arguments help nobody. So I think I'll continue this another day, and I hope it helps some folks. And we'll continue on looking into in the future about where do you go to find real truth.